Hey guys, welcome to the video. Salt here. Today we're going to be going over the primary weapon, the Zenith. But before we start, let's go over our commenter board. The first commenter of the last video was Pepper the Short One, and the top commenter of the last video was Nomad VO. Then we have a recent channel supporters here of Whoopty-Wham, Nice Bear, and Colonel 06. Thank you so much for your support. The Zenith is a login reward weapon that you'll first be able to pick at day 100. You'll have a choice between the Zenith, the Azima, which is a secondary, and the Zenistar, which is a melee. And whatever you don't pick, you'll be able to pick again at day 300, and then finally at day 500 for that last one. Now, between the three login weapons, the Zenith is very niche. Its niche is that it's very good at doing profit taker content. The Zenistar is also a bit of a niche. So the Zenistar is tied for the best in slot melee weapon for pseudo-exalt warframes that specifically use Wrathful Advance. So things like Atlas and Gara are really good with the Zenistar melee. And then the Azima secondary is probably the one that has the least niche. It's just a generally awesome weapon that has a passive overguard generating build that pretty much any warframe can get great use out of. So out of those three weapons, unless you really do profit taker or unless you're, a Atlas or Gara main and you really want to use the Zenistar, I would almost always suggest picking up the Azima first. The build I'm going to be showcasing today for the Zenith is going to be a Steel Path Endurance build. This is going to be the build to do the most amount of damage you can with the Zenith. It is not going to be a Profit Taker build. Even though the Zenith is really good at doing Profit Taker, me personally, I've done Profit Taker probably less than 10 times, so I don't have great knowledge on Profit Taker, and I don't like speaking on things I don't have great knowledge on. And so I'm going to be focusing on the max damage Steel Path Endurance build today. If you personally have a great Profit Taker build for the Zenith though, feel free to put it in the comments for other people to look at. I'm sure it would be greatly appreciated. Unique and interesting things about the Zenith is that it has two firing modes. Its primary firing mode is that of an automatic assault rifle. And to activate its secondary fire mode, you're going to alternate fire. That's going to fire a disc that highlights the heads of nearby enemies within 20 meters, even through walls, and it's going to turn the weapon into semi-automatic. This also gives the weapon infinite punch through, even through walls. Now, anytime you reload, or if you alternate fire again when you already have a disc out, it's going to go back into its primary automatic mode. And so you're going to want to alternate fire once after every reload to keep it in its semi-automatic form. And the reason for that is because of its stats. If we look at the primary fire mode here, the critical chance is 10%, which is really, really bad. Critical damage is 2 times, which is average. And status chance is 34%, which is actually quite good. But if we go down to the semi-automatic mode, this is the mode that we actually want to keep it in. It has infinite punch through, number one, that's a really good thing about it. But it also has a crit chance of 35%, which is really good, has a critical damage of 2.5, which is well above average, but it does have a status chance of only 8%. Now, there are some statuses that still work well even with low status chance, and that would be things like viral and magnetic. All right, let's go over the mods now. We have Galvanized Chamber for multi-shot, Galvanized Scope for critical chance, Vial Acceleration for fire rate. This gives us 90% fire rate. On a lot of assault rifle builds, we use Prime Shred because this also gives us punch through. But remember, we have infinite punch through on the semi-automatic Zenith mode. And so we don't use Prime Shred in this case. We actually just use Vial Acceleration for even more fire rate. In the next slot, we have Bladed Rounds for 120% crit damage. There is some consideration here to go Hunter Munitions instead of Bladed Rounds. Both are quite good. Bladed Rounds will likely give you more value in early to mid Steel Path, and Hunter Munitions will likely give you more value in mid to late Steel Path when enemies have enough health or effective health to live long enough to take a few dot procs. Critical Delay for critical chance, Vital Sense for critical damage. In the next 2 slots, we're going to be making Viral, so we're going to use the 6060 Toxic mod of Malignant Force and the 165 cold mod of Primed Cryo rounds to make Viral. Now, if you already have external Viral, you can use another element here. Just consider this has a really bad status chance. So you don't want to use an element that needs to be stacked up infinitely like heat or electric. You want to use an element that kind of has a cap to it. Magnetic would probably be the next best choice after Viral, just because 1 stack of magnetic still gives you 100% extra damage to overguard and shields. However, Corrosive would also be quite good. And corrosive, you would just use the toxic mod and the 6060 electric mod to make corrosive. So you could either choose magnetic or corrosive. If you choose magnetic, you actually get a free slot, so you could go blade of rounds and 100 munitions in that case. So that's up to you though. In the Exilus slot, we use Vigilante Supplies. This is going to give us a 5% chance to enhance critical hits from primary weapons. I was considering maybe using the Stabilizer mod for reduced recoil. However, Deadhead by itself pretty much removes most of our recoil, so I feel like you don't really need Stabilizer. So we can just get some extra damage out of Vigilante Supplies here. In the Arcane slot, we're going to be using Primary Deadhead for 360% flat damage, 30% headshot multiplier, and minus 50% weapon recoil. This is how you build out the primary weapon, the Zenith. I hope you guys liked it, and if you did, consider leaving a like and subscribing for future content. So now we'll have a 5-minute gameplay portion showcasing the weapon, and when that's done, we'll come back to the Orbiter and we'll give it its final score and rank. So I'll see you guys again after the gameplay. Alrighty, we're about to start this gameplay portion up here. We're going to showcase the Zenith, see what it can do. Remember, you're going to start in automatic, so what you're going to want to do is alternate fire, and then just go about your business. And the only time you have to alternate fire is anytime you reload. So after a reload, just go right here. And you go ahead, alternate fire again, and go right back into it. It seemed like it was going to be annoying to do, but once you do it enough, it kind of becomes muscle memory. It's not that big of a deal. So the big strength of this weapon compared to some other assault rifles in the game is that it has that infinite punch through. You know, a lot of assault rifles only have, you know, a certain amount of meters of punch through. This has infinite, so it's going to get extreme value out of playing in kind of linear areas where you can line enemies up. Maybe like here-ish, where I know enemies are going to come up out of that staircase there, so I can kind of line them up as they come up, or even back here. So punch through is going to be your best friend with this weapon. That's pretty much its whole shtick. Other than shooting through walls, but shooting through walls is more of a niche thing when you're building for Steel Path Endurance. When you're building for Profit Taker, that's what actually makes this a good Profit Taker weapon. But just looking for Steel Path Endurance, the shooting through walls thing, it's a little bit more novel, niche. You're not going to do it super often. You could though. And like I said at the beginning of the video, though, the choice between the 3 different login rewards, it's a big deal because you have to wait like 300- and 500-day logins if you, you know, didn't pick it up initially for the ones you didn't pick up. So you want to make sure your choices are being thought out there. And the Zenith is good. If you like do a crap load of Profit Taker content, then the Zenith might be worth picking up as your first one. Again, though, I don't claim to be a Profit Taker expert. Like, I know this is meta for Profit Taker, but it might be the old meta. There might be something that is better nowadays. So double check on the Profit Taker stuff before you pick the Zenith. But that's kind of its niche, or at least it was its niche. The Zenith Star is real. I was in automatic mode there. The Zenith Star is really good for pseudo exalt Warframes like Gara and Atlas because it has a disc that shoots out and just stays for 10 seconds. So on a pseudo exalt Warframe that uses Wrathful Advance, you can just reset your Wrathful with that, and then you have a passive damage source that just sits out there for 10 seconds, which is really strong. It's not always going to be best in slot though. Like me personally on Gara and Atlas, I actually like using a Zaw as my stat stick on them for more energy. So it's really up to you if you want more energy or if you want more damage. Zenith Star will be the best in slot for damage, whereas the Zaw is best in slot for energy regen. And then the Azima, oh, the Azima is so sexy. The Azima is a secondary weapon where it has an alternate fire that shoots out a little turret that just spins around. And if you build it out correctly, it basically just generates overguard for you. So really good. If you're if you're ever interested in doing a Naros level cap build, that it would basically need the Azima to do it, because you could kind of do mini shield gates on a Naros with the Azima. Not exactly shield gates, it would be overguard gating, but it's a 0.5 gate on overguard. But the Azima is useful on pretty much all Warframes. Any Warframe that wants overguard, which is pretty much all of them. So just make that decision carefully, you know, because you do have to wait 200 days in between each decision. All right, against Acolytes, this is surprisingly not too bad. It has a lot of raw damage, so it actually does pretty good headshot damage against the Acolytes. You are going to want to get headshots though against them. I still wouldn't say it's good though. It's not good against Acolytes. It's just not that bad for an assault rifle. Most assault rifles are kind of painful to use against Acolytes. This one, not so much. So, all right, we're at 5 minutes here. Let's kill the Thoraxes and get out of here. There we go. All right, so 5 minutes, we were at 337 kills. Let's go ahead and go back to the Orbiter now. Welcome back to the Orbiter, guys. So let's go over how the Zenith did in its 3 10-minute runs on Steel Path Lewis Circulus. It got 658, 640, and 512 kills, putting it in the B tier for kill per minute potential. And I know we had that one really low outlier at 512 compared to the other 2 runs, which were in the mid 600s. But I had a feeling it was going to be a low outlier, and it was just because something happened in that run where I needed to hit life support. Sentient spawned at exactly the same time, and so the enemies never followed me to the life support. They just stayed in that faraway room fighting the sentients, and then after I got the life support, I had to find where I left them off at. So I spent about a minute to a minute and a half not even, you know, fighting any enemies there. So I had a feeling it was going to be a low outlier, but since it scored in the B tier anyway with the other 2 numbers, I just decided to keep it. So single target potential now, let's talk about. Versus Acolytes, it's pretty good. It's actually surprisingly better than a lot of other assault rifles in the game versus Acolytes. Probably just comes down to the raw damage that it does. But versus Eximuses and Thraxes, it feels pretty much like any other assault rifle, pretty average. Now, if you were to put Hunter munitions over bladed rounds like we were talking about when we were going over the build, Hunter munitions would definitely feel better versus Thraxes than bladed rounds, but bladed rounds is going to feel better versus pretty much any other enemy type. Until you start scaling up, you know, way higher in level, then Hunter munitions will eventually feel a lot better than bladed rounds. But that's a decision you can make yourself there, you know, bladed rounds or Hunter munitions. Hunter munitions is going to be better versus those really thick enemies. So for single target though, I think I'm going to still give it right in the middle there at B tier. And now we talk about ease of use. Well, this is a weapon you still want to aim with. You want to get stack deadhead. You want to stack scope. You also have to remember to alternate fire every time you reload, which is just another thing that you have to, you know, think about when you're using the weapon. So the ease of use is not incredibly hard to use, but it's not easy either. And so I'm kind of stuck between high C, low B. I think we'll give it a B tier though for ease of use. Low B for ease of use. Anyway, that's my take. Tell me what you guys think. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have an amazing day. All right, bye.